China is grappling with their worst COVID-19 outbreak since infections emerged over 2 years ago. The country has put 24 million people in lockdown and is halting factory production of Apple products and Toyota cars, while the West loosens mask mandates and other COVID safety measures. Chinese officials are implementing some of the strongest restrictions yet in the entire pandemic, as a 7-day average of new cases in China has more than quintupled, that's 5 times, in recent days, according to the New York Times. Meanwhile, there is an emergence of a new variant called Deltacron. It's a hybrid of Omicron and Delta, those variants that we know so well. And according to a new study published over the weekend, at least 2 cases of Deltacron have been identified in California, which we know what happens next. So here to discuss is Dr. Irwin Redlener. He's the founding director of the National Center for Disaster Preparedness. He's also an MSNBC public health analyst. Dr. Redlener, I pay attention to global headlines. My dad trained me to look at those headlines, to watch for surges in other places. What is your initial reaction to China going into lockdown? Is it necessary for them to do that right now? And if it is, should we here in America be concerned that we will face another surge or potential lockdown?
Yeah. So, by the way, Zerlina, it's also striking to me that we're so interconnected as a world. We're talking about China in relationship to the Ukraine-Russia crisis. We're talking about China in relationship to COVID, international trade, and everything else. So we're all connected on all fronts. I am concerned about what's happening in China, although China's always been, I guess, the most extreme country on earth when it comes to reacting. They have a zero tolerance for any breakouts. They do very extensive, contact tracing, and now they're into some serious lockdowns. And why is because they are having a serious outbreak. And I think that what we're dealing with is, first of all, they are not necessarily dealing with the Deltacron, that new combined variant that we're seeing in the U.S., which is part the Delta and part the Omicron variants. They are dealing with a big outbreak of the so-called stealth Omicron, which is the variant called BA2, which spreads more rapidly than the original Omicron, even though it may not cause as serious an illness. But China is not taking any chances, and we're seeing a very tough crackdown on this new outbreak.
So that's important to understand. So we're talking about 2 distinct variants that are new-ish. And we're talking about the stealth Omicron, which is a subvariant of Omicron. And then we mentioned in the intro Deltacron, which is a combination of Omicron and Delta. Okay, correct. So let's talk about Deltacron. Right. Should we be concerned about that here in the States?
Well, there's been only a few cases in the U.S., but it's something that we have to keep our eye on. And I think my main conclusion about both the situation in China and Deltacron is the following, that we're not done with this. I think we're in all a kind of a state of mass wishful thinking in America and elsewhere that, we're done with COVID. I hope that's true. And eventually, I guess it will be true. But we still have lingering challenges. We're still dealing with about 1,300 cases of deaths, from COVID every single day in the United States. We're seeing big upticks now in Europe, in the UK, in Germany, Netherlands, et cetera. So we have these lingering spots of concern around the world, including in the U.S. And I think we're just going to have to keep our eyes focused, in spite of everything else that's going on in our complicated world, our eyes focused on making sure we don't miss something really important happening with COVID, which it could be.
One of the things I keep having happen every couple of months is we do this thing where we're like, we're over it. People have pandemic fatigue. Get back to the work. Get back to the office. What are you afraid of? And then we keep having surges, and And now we've removed all mask mandates, and we've already talked about 2 variants. I mean, the Biden administration warns that there may be cuts to the funding because of a stalemate in Congress right now. I mean, how concerned are you that we actually are not adequately prepared for, I mean, is it wrong to say the inevitable variant that causes a surge in the future? Is that unreasonable to say at this point, 2 years into this pandemic?
Yeah, well, we're just not done with it. And it's a mysterious virus in many ways, Zerlina. So we don't really know what's coming down the pike here. What we do know, which was mind-boggling last week, there was originally a $25 billion COVID package for the administration to continue its work that was whittled down in the budget discussions, and then it ended up being $15.9 billion. And then that was totally eliminated by the Democrats, who were worried that if they kept it in there to the opposition of the Republicans, that the whole budget deal would fall apart. So now the Democrats and the administration are really worried about where we're going and how are we going to be prepared. And the other big problem, Zerlina, is that we're not sufficiently vaccinated. We still only have about 65% of all Americans that are fully vaccinated. It means a little bit more than a third of Americans are not fully vaccinated. And that leaves us open to get hit by whatever the next surge, whatever the next variant that's coming at us. And I am worried about that.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about as well is yesterday, unvaccinated NBA star Kyrie Irving went to a game, no mask. I mean, there's no mandates anymore. So sitting in the crowd, no mask. I mean, when you're a medical professional like yourself, when you see this, what do you think?
Well, first of all, his teammates and others are demanding that he be allowed to go back and play. But the rule is that you can't play if you're not vaccinated, period. The second question is, well, then how come he can go sit in the stands with other people that are at the game if he's not vaccinated? If it was up to me, I'd still be requiring indoor venues to mandate vaccinations, not masking, but vaccinations at this point. And I think we're making a mistake if we're letting up on the vaccination rules, and a serious sports star should not be given a free ride and go against the rules that are in place. That's my opinion about it.
Yeah, it makes me feel, feel bad for the people sitting next to him. I'm like, every time I inhale air, I'm going to hope that COVID is not in it. Dr. Irwin Redlener, thank you so much for being here as always and helping us understand the latest. Hopefully, we'll get to a place where we are finished. But as you said, we're not there yet. Please stay safe. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.